Hi, I'm Terry Kimball, President and CEO here at the Chandler Chamber, and I am so excited to bring you today's dynamic speaker on our Strategy for Success series, sponsored by the City of Chandler's Industrial Development Authority. And I have James Madison. James, welcome.
Terry, thank you very much. So nice to see you.
Well, I just loved your topic, and this is so relevant in what's happening. And I was really intrigued by this. How to discover your zone of genius and stay there.
That's right. That's right. Especially like you talked about with the time of the pandemic and everything in everybody's life shifting, a lot of people were left with themselves. So one of the things I get to do as a coach is reintroduce people to themselves, and maybe they didn't know who they were pre-pandemic. And so that's kind of exciting.
Well, and I just love that poster you have in the background there. Remember your why, because
That's
and
it.
I know I have a feeling you may be talking about that.
Just a little bit.
But I want our viewers. I was very impressed with your credentials, and I just want to let everybody kind of know a little bit about you, because you are that founder and CEO of On Purpose Life, and you help professionals by becoming more efficient and just inspiring leaders.
Mhm.
And I love this, that your superpowers are connecting, encouraging, and maximizing professional and personal development. I love that superpower. Um, and some of your greatest accomplishment, you've had 30 years of leadership. You must have started when you were 6.
Exactly.
But you've been coaching and preparing leaders for successful career opportunities and personal fulfillment. You have a passion for igniting the spark in others to learn and grow and develop by reaching their greatest potential. James firmly believes that to pursue your purpose with passion. And I love that. You and I were talking a little bit about that.
That's right.
And you'll never work a day in your life. And that is so true.
Sounds good.
James is an Army veteran who served in Germany and participated in Operation Desert Storm. Thank you for your service. That's a huge accomplishment. Additionally, you grew up as an Army brat residing in numerous locations, including Belgium, Paris, Germany, New York, and of course, our favorite here in Arizona. After serving in the military, you spent 25 years in supply chain leadership, operations management, and customer development for roles for Fortune 500 companies. Most recently, you were the managing director at leading an executive search team firm before led into the executive and leadership coaching full-time, which I love because you've walked the trenches there.
That's right.
You are married and together. You have 5 children with his wife of 7 years, Kimberly. And I know that behind every successful person, there's also a wonderful supporting spouse. So that's really important.
It is so true, so true.
And your focus is on faith, family, friends, fitness, and funds are all keys to your success and happiness. And I love that.
That 5 F's.
Wow, I can't wait to hear what you have. So how do I discover my genius zone?
Hold on, and you'll know in about the next 45 minutes, Terry.
All right. I'll let you take it from here.
I will share my screen. And we will go from here. There we go. How to discover your zone of genius and stay there. Terry, this really came from discussions that I was having with senior leaders around the Valley and around the country and senior HR professionals. And the question was, how can we re-engage employees that have been working from home for the past year? What does our culture look like a year and a half after just not having people around? And how do we really re-engage? And so I created this webinar that I've done many times as a lunch and learn for groups around the Valley and around the country. Did it for a group of 500 VA employees a while back, as well as some other companies around the country. And the idea is that if we understand who we are, our zone of genius and our superpowers, then we can make decisions going forward as the world starts to move forward as it has. We can make decisions out of who we are, not so much what we've done. Because as we found in the pandemic, everything changed. Everything that we defined ourselves by shifted. And we were left to figure out, who am I and why do I exist? And that's where I created this fun and engaging webinar. So you already kind of covered a little bit about me and my background, so I will go a little bit deeper here. Let me talk about today. This is going to be fun. It's very engaging. I hope you're ready. I know it can be tough doing these from home on Zoom and get distractions. I've done that myself, but I would encourage you to get the most out of this next hour. Please turn your phone off, pay attention, keep your screen on so you can hear. And I'd also say keep an open mind. Some things I'm going to talk about are things that may initially not sound like you, but if you just listen and have an open mind, really challenge and see what resonates with you, because this is an opportunity for you to really get to understand your zone of genius and what your superpowers are, so you can make better decisions for a more effective, satisfied, and fulfilled life. Why are you here today? Here are some of the reasons that you could be here. You want to learn a new strategy for success. As I said, the world has shifted, and we need new strategies to continue to be successful. You might have those 3 a.m. in the morning problems. Raise your hand if you ever wake up at 3 o'clock or you're still up at 3 o'clock trying to figure out that work problem, right? Also, maybe you're just the kind of person that likes to continually grow. You like to continue to learn, grow, and develop. That could be you. Maybe it's to learn from other thought leaders. Many times when I do these types of things, I learn as much from the people that participate as I share. So thought leadership is really important. Maybe you just want to know how to do more of what you love and less of what drains your energy. I think that was the real big aha for me during the pandemic, is to figure out what are the things that actually energize me versus the things that I may even do well, but they drain me. Also, some people may be looking to pivot on purpose. Pivot became a really big word when everybody had to shift jobs and shift opportunities. And it's important that you do that on purpose, which starts with knowing who you are. Great news, you're in the right place. Today, I'm going to cover all of these things. And by the end, you'll be able to answer those questions, and you will be able to have all that you need to understand who you are, how you were designed, and how you can move forward. So regardless of what you've seen and heard from other places, today is the day it's going to be very clear. So here's what you're going to learn today. I'm going to talk about something, a tool that I use in my coaching called the Core Values Index. And it's going to talk about this idea of the core values wiring, how we are all wired to make decisions and to show up and contribute the way we contribute in the world. You're going to understand your zone of genius and your superpowers. Also understand how to have greater fulfillment and personal satisfaction, and how to relate to everyone better in your life. Couldn't we all do a better job of relating? And what would the world look like if we all related to each other better? And the exciting part is you're going to learn this idea of work-life harmony. Work-life balance is what people talk about, and that's all about a yes and no kind of situation you have to choose. But work-life harmony kind of brings everything together and says yes and yes. You can have it all when you understand who you are at the core. So let me just step back and tell you a little bit about myself, kind of my career roadmap. I started out, as Terry said, as an Army brat. My father retired as a lieutenant colonel in the Army. I actually spent a year living here in Arizona at Fort Huachuca when I was in the 5th grade. After college, I went into the military, served in Germany, in Nuremberg, Germany, and served in Operation Desert Storm. Then after 4 years, I left the military, and I PCS, as we call it, Permanent Change of Station, into corporate America, where I went to work for Colgate-Palmolive, who owned the Hill's Science Diet brand. And I was in manufacturing roles in a plant that was 100% team-based in Richmond, Indiana. After that, 7.5 years, that led me to the corporate office in Topeka, Kansas, that led me to Los Angeles to running my own plant, and then ultimately brought me here to Phoenix, where I was part of a customer development team that called on the PetSmart account that was here in Phoenix. And I'm so glad, because I'm not leaving Phoenix. So thank you for that opportunity. After about 8 years working here with Hills, I moved over to Henkel, that used to be here in the North Valley, that made all the beauty products and laundry products, and I was director of new product initiatives. After about 2 years, that company moved to Connecticut. So my wife and I moved to Connecticut, and then we came back in mid-19, and this is where the pivot started. I say that I pivoted before pivoting was a cool thing to do in 2020. And what happened for me is I decided after 25 years, I wanted to do something different. And I found a book called What Color is Your Parachute? What Color is Your Parachute? And in that book, it was a series of self-inventory assessments that helped me figure out my distinctive competencies, my desires, what my transferable skills were. And ultimately, the most important thing it said is, what is your purpose? It was in the center of the parachute. And I sat back and thought about what my purpose was. What were the things that energized me and that I was really good at and I had experience in, my purpose. And it was always about helping see people learn, grow, and develop. I'm a developer and a maximizer from a strength finder standpoint, and I always like to see people reach their full potential. So I had a coach at the time, and he said, so what are you going to do now that you know that? And I said, well, one of the roles that I always enjoyed working with when I ran a plant was an executive recruiter. I love what they did, and I always thought when I retire from doing what I have to do to doing what I want to do, I'm going to be an executive recruiter. So my coach said, why don't you do it now? And I said, yeah, that's a good idea. I'm going to do it now. I have no idea what that means, but I'm going to be an executive recruiter. I had just decided that's what I wanted to do. Went to Scottsdale to Mountainside Fitness, which was my gym at the time and still is to this day, and went to my Saturday morning Zumba class. Zumba is my exercise of choice because it is just pure fun when the music turns on. And I met a lady after the class who was an executive recruiter. And so I said to her, you know what? I just decided I wanted to be an executive recruiter. I exchanged cards with her. 7 days later, I went to work in that recruiting firm as an executive recruiter. So one of the things that I learned was that when you understand your purpose and you pursue it with passion, all your blessings, all the resources, everything you need to be successful in your purpose will be attracted to you, and you'll never work a day in your life. That's where I came up with that slogan. And that was the first time that it was tested. 2 years later, everything I've done has either been a calling or I've just been led to it by being in purpose, on purpose in everything I do. That led me for about a year. I did executive recruiting. And then halfway through the pandemic, companies weren't necessarily hiring search firms to find executives because people weren't hiring. So I had a conversation with a past colleague about executive coaching. And I knew her from the previous Colgate world, and she had talked about pivoting into coaching. And she said, based on what I know about you, I think you would like this, and you could do this along with your executive recruiting. And I thought, yeah, that makes sense based on my purpose. You're absolutely right. And so it's like one of those things where if you ever buy a car of a particular color, then you seek nothing but that color car everywhere you go. Every conversation I had after that was a coaching conversation. It didn't matter who I talked to, something about coaching came up. And I was just led down this path of opportunities to meet people to further explore executive coaching. I met a guy on a Simon Sinek workshop, Jumpstart Your Why for Veterans. And he said, if you're going to consider coaching, you need to check out the John Maxwell program. So I called the John Maxwell program, and they just happened to have a deal, of course. 3 days left in the deal, I signed up. And I was certified the next month as a John Maxwell certified speaker, trainer, coach. That was in September of 2019. And then as 2020, sorry. Then as the next month came, I was on another webinar about coaching. And there was a lady who had an academy that taught coaches how to actually run a coaching business. Because many times we as coaches know how to do the coaching, but not the business side. And that's exactly what she did. So I hired her, joined the academy. She is my coach today. I have a call with her in the morning, as a matter of fact. Then the month of November came around, and I was able to quit my executive recruiting job and be full-time into coaching, where I found an on-purpose life, where I teach people how to live in purpose, on purpose, so they never work another day in their life. From a personal standpoint, it's the 5 F's for me. It's faith at the center of everything I do, all decisions, my foundation, my family, my friends, fitness, and lots of fun. And you can see some of the pictures of the things I like to do. There's me in my Zumba class there on the left. You see I love to hike, love to paddleboard. My wife and I love to dance. We have a big, blended, beautiful family. I also do some speaking at my church for service there. And so you can see we like lots of fun. And as a family, it's kind of the foundation for me. So the other thing that you need to understand in order to understand me is my why. And the why is, for me, is all about encouraging growth so that together we can all achieve our purpose and potential. I have a passion for helping see everyone reach their full purpose and potential by recognizing it. Simon Sinek talks about the fact that people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. It's this greater cause that attracts people to you and all the resources that you need to get things accomplished. My 3-word why is to ignite intentional growth. Everything I do is all about igniting, waking people up to be on purpose about growing. You'll recognize that remember your why sign there. That's Damon John of Shark Tank. That's one of his line of artwork. And when I saw that, I bought the biggest one I could find, and it's right there over my shoulder. So for me, it's all about igniting that intentional growth, which fits perfectly with what I do as an executive coach. Here's the model that I use. I'm my own signature system that I use for what I call growth on purpose. It's that intentional growth. And it starts with awareness. When I work with clients, the first thing I do is help them become aware of where they are versus where they want to go. That's where the first tension comes in. Then I do an assessment, and I'm going to share with you an assessment that I use today called the Core Values Index to figure out who they are at the core so they can understand how to move from where they are to where they want to go. Then the next thing is approach. Typically, what stops people from getting to where they want to get to is a mindset or a strategy. I would tell you 95% of the time it's mindset. It's a shift that has to happen in the 6 inches between the ears, which is the most powerful and deadly organ in our body, because sometimes we can keep ourselves from accessing things because of what we think about them. So I help people through mindset coaching, and we also create strategies. So that's the approach part. Then the next part is we have to take action. You can't just think about it and have a new mindset. You have to put it into action. And I help people put their plans into action so they can actually move forward. And when you're intentional, understanding where you are, understanding exactly who you are, understanding the approach you need to have, and you put it into action, you cannot help but ascend. You will ascend. It's what I call ascension with intention. And if you think about it, the way I think about it is as you get to a new level of awareness, you continue to grow around that continuous growth cycle, upward, and we continue to grow. We are always growing. We are always in transition for ourselves. Jim Rohn has a quote that I love that says, "Our levels of success rarely exceed our levels of personal development," because we attract success by who we become. Think about that. We attract success. We don't chase success. We actually attract it by who we become. And that's why I'm so passionate about helping people understand who they are, where they want to go, and walking down that journey alongside with them to help them grow. It all starts with purpose. Why is part of that purpose? Why is that communication of your purpose? Mark Twain, one of my other favorite quotes, says, "The 2 most important days in your life are the day you're born and the day you figure out why." That is so impactful. Understanding why is important because it helps guide and shape every decision you will make in your life, personally and professionally. And this idea of purpose is really about, why does something exist? And I'll tell you that when we do not understand the purpose for something, we can tend to misuse and abuse that thing. Here's what it means to us as individuals. When we don't understand our purpose, we can tend to let others and the world misuse and abuse us. Just think about that for a moment. Without understanding our purpose, we can't put in place the right boundaries. We can't make the right decisions to fulfill the purpose for which we were created. So purpose is so important. A real quick story that I want to tell you, a real simple illustration of this is there was a lady who sent an iPad to her father. He was a grandfather, so he could communicate with the kids, send videos, do FaceTime, watch movies, and share things with him. She never explained to him what it was. So when Grandpa got the iPad, he opened it up and thought, "This is cool. Looks like a great chopping board." So he started chopping his vegetables on this iPad. Boy, this is nice. It has an apple on it. It's nice glass. Cut everything up, made whatever he was making, threw the iPad chopping board in the dishwasher and killed it. Now, it's a real simple example, but it explains, again, where when we don't understand the purpose, we can misuse or abuse something. Had she explained to him that this is going to be an iPad, it's like a computer, it's a big phone, Dad, and you're going to be able to communicate with the kids, he would have been able to engage in conversations and connections with his kids. So just a real simple example of why it's so important to understand our purpose. Now, when I was doing executive coaching and executive recruiting, I would ask people, "What is your purpose?" When they would talk about not enjoying their job. And they said, "What are you talking about? What do you mean by purpose? I just got to find a job." And I said, "I know, but what is your purpose? Because it's going to be easier when you move in your purpose." "I don't get it. What are you talking about?" So here's what I've created. So if you're taking notes, here's the first thing you want to write down. These 3 things are an indication or elements of your individual purpose. The number 1 is your passion. Passion meaning, what is the thing that you would do if you did not have to work at all for money? You were in a situation where you did not have to work. It's the thing that you get up every day and do that would energize you and motivate you, that would have a contribution on the world. So this isn't get up and play Xbox or just get up and play golf, but this is the thing that you get up every day and do to have a contribution on the world. That's your passion. I always had a passion for helping see people grow. Back in high school, I was captain of the basketball team, and I got to work with people on my team to help see them grow and our team to grow and progress. In the military, I was a captain in the Army. I got to watch and help the soldiers grow as we were deploying to Southwest Asia. When I got out and went into corporate America, it was nothing but team growth, team leader growth, manager growth, even watching my own kids grow in their own development in school and sports. I coach teams. So for me, my passion has always been about helping see people grow. The second part of your purpose is your gifting. You have to be actually good at that thing. And so in my case, I was always good at it and had enough motivation to study and really become good at helping people grow. Serving people has always been my heart. I always want to serve people no matter what I'm doing, and I was always very good at it. And then the third part of your purpose is experience. You have to have experience where you put those two things together: your passion, what energizes you, your gifting, what you're good at, and then experience. When you find the triangulation of those three things, when they come together, it's a very, very good indication of your purpose. And then what happens is when opportunities show up in your life, because you will attract opportunities, and you understand these three things and you step through that opportunity with confidence, when it results in peace and joy and satisfaction, and there's good fruit and good results from that opportunity, that's when you know it's your purpose. And what happens is you will attract more and more opportunities. It's not your purpose if the opposite shows up. If there's stress and fear, anxiety, worry, doubt, then it's probably not your purpose. Regroup and figure out these three questions. But when you know it's your purpose is when the opportunity shows up and you confidently and boldly step through them and you see good results and you have that work-life harmony and you have that satisfaction and joy in your life. So those are the three elements of purpose that you start out with first. Now, what I'm going to share with you is in the assessment phase of what I do, I use an assessment tool called the Core Values Index. Many of you may have taken different types of behavioral or personality assessments. The Core Values Index is a little different because it doesn't necessarily focus on behaviors, but it focuses on your core wiring and who you are at the center. Like it's the innate, unchanging motivation for why you do things and what things really energize you. Many assessments have what's called a reliability score, which means if you took the test over and over, how often would you get the same result? And many of them measure how you evolve over the course of your life and as you grow and mature. And so many assessments have a lower reliability score, but the Core Values Index is at almost 98%, 97.7% reliable, which means it measures who you are from the time you were born to the age you are now and everything in between. It's pretty much unchanging because it gets to who you are, not how you show up. And it really helps predict the types of encounters, the types of people and situations that you'll be inspired by and motivated, and the types of things that you won't. And it really helps you understand, even from a work perspective, work that will be more meaningful and rewarding, this is the part for everybody to focus in on. So look, we all have a unique recipe. We all are different. Not one of us that takes this or not one of us that walks the planet is exactly the same because we have unique passions, gifts, talents, and experiences. And so the key is to understand what that is and to walk in that and attract all the things that we're supposed to have to fulfill our purpose. But first we have to understand. So here's how it works. We're all born with a certain bent, I like to call it. We all have a certain bent. We have a certain wiring towards a certain core energy, let's call it. And then what happens is through nurture, the world, our parents and grandparents and teachers and coaches and relationships and employers start to warp us away. And when we feel this warping away from our natural bent, it's uncomfortable. And then we seek in the world all the different vices that are out there in the world to help relieve us of this thing, this warping that we're experiencing, but it doesn't work. And many times those vices become a bigger problem than the original thing we were trying to solve and comfort. So what's interesting about the Core Values Index, I call it a factory reset. When you understand your core wiring from the beginning, which we really never understood as adults, it allows you to get back to the factory reset, operate from our superpowers and our zone of genius, and make decisions that allow us to have more work-life harmony, more satisfaction, more joy, more peace in our life. Just imagine how this world of 7.6 billion people would look if everybody operated out of their own zone of genius and they were honored and valued for who they are. Just think about what this world could look like. So this movement of the Core Values Index, I think, is about helping wake people up to who they are, reintroducing them to themselves so that they can walk and be honored and honor others for who they were created to be. So I'm going to give you a quick overview. If you ever want to do the assessment, I've got information at the end of the presentation where I do the assessment, and I can even do coaching about this, but I want to walk you through the key elements of the Core Value Index. There are 4 particular core energies: builder, merchant, innovator, and banker. As we go around the clock are the names of them. So I want to talk about builder first. Builder has a core value of power. It's this idea of getting things done, making things happen, taking action in all situations, never ever procrastinating, never ever needing to wait to be perfect. But it's this faith that you have. It's people that have high builder, core power energy, have a faith, not in God, but a faith in themselves that they know that they know that they know what's right, and they don't need help to figure it out, and they take action swiftly. These are the kind of people that say, look, I'm going to jump out of the plane and I'll develop my wings on the way down. I don't need to have it all figured out, and we'll adjust on the way. And if things don't work out perfectly, you know what? That was an experiment, and we'll just take another path the next time. So that's a little bit about the builder. And these are some of the things that you typically see from a builder. It's all about that gut instinct, very action focused, decisive, independent, not afraid, very direct, concise, and sometimes can seem not so personable. The next one I want to talk about is the merchant. The merchant has a core value of love, and it's really love in a relationship. It's all about seeing and the inspired vision of what can be and nurturing that in oneself and in others. It's, again, seeing people for the best that they could be, even if they don't see it in themselves. Merchants are personally invested in helping see people reach their full potential. They're all about relationships, vision, talking and listening. Merchants are great storytellers. I'm a big storyteller, which is why I do what I do. And my wife says that I can make a short story long. All the details of the story matter. All the flavors, all the colors of the story matter to a merchant because it's all about that relating experience. Merchants are energized or catalyzed by truth. Merchants want to connect at a deep level. Therefore, what they do is they actually, when they speak to someone they know and they say, "How are you doing?" And someone says, "I'm fine, how are you?" They say, "No, pretend like I'm sitting in your living room on your couch. Now tell me, how are you actually doing?" We want to connect at a deeper level. That is where merchants are personally invested to make a difference in the world, is by connecting at a deep level and supporting and encouraging people. Now with each one of these, they have a conflict strategy. The conflict strategy for merchant is called manipulation, which means massaging, being very diplomatic, maybe not sharing all the details and facts in situations so that we can keep things very relational. And so to some people that comes across as manipulation, but it's really just this idea that we want to keep things very relational. So that's the merchant. And merchants have a sense and feel about things. It's all about relationships. I'm a high merchant, as you can tell. We love being part of a team, seeing the vision, very encouraging, motivational, inspirational. Merchants are the people you want to have in every group that are the spark, that can get things going, that can get people rallied around things and kind of get people moving in the right direction. Merchants make great leaders, as a matter of fact, very personable. The next core value that I want to discuss is the innovator. The innovator has a core value of wisdom. And this is the idea of they are concerned with figuring out what is the best way to approach a situation. Not the fastest or the easiest, but what is the best way to approach a situation. Innovators with a core value of wisdom are great problem solvers. They love and are energized by figuring things out. Innovators are never defeated. There is never a problem or a challenge. There's just a situation that needs a creative solution. That's how an innovator looks at the world. They are very happy to go to a whiteboard or piece of paper and brainstorm options on ways to overcome obstacles, but they are never defeated. The innovator is catalyzed or energized by compassion. They stay compassionately plugged in and curious to the situation despite which particular option is chosen by a group. The point for an innovator is to make sure that all options are explored, and so the best can be brought forward, and then everyone can make a very educated choice. It's all about assessing and solving. The conflict strategy for an innovator, when they don't feel that people are looking at all the options, is to interrogate. And that's asking a lot of questions. I term this interrogation what I call death by 1,000 duck bites. It's this idea of just asking questions. Some people call it the devil's advocate, where you know that someone's going to decide something and it hasn't been looked at fully. So we need to bring this train back to the station and evaluate it before we set it off on its course. So I'm going to ask enough questions to cause enough doubt to show that, look, we need to take the time to look at this and do it right. That's the value of an innovator on a team, is that they want to look at things to make sure the right options happen. So that is the innovator. The banker. The banker has a core value of knowledge. I skipped past this. So here are some of the values that you see in an innovator. It's all about strategies and big picture. A lot of times consultants, board members, people that are in groups that have to figure out how to get things done, make things happen, usually are wired by innovator wisdom because they're energized by figuring the best way, out of the box thinking. Not typically like to be focused on coloring in the lines, but have the opportunity to work outside of the box. Now to the banker. The banker, the last of the four, is the banker. And the banker has a core value of knowledge. Knowledge being information, facts, figures, research, proof. It's all about the data. It's all about analyzing and reading. I've often said about bankers that I know that bankers are the type of people, if they have a high banker core value, that when they go to sign a mortgage document, the 7,400 page documents that we have to sign when we buy a house, they actually read them all and they highlight them and they come with questions and they want to know information. You know, someone like me who's a merchant goes to a close, wants to know when the next payment is. I get to skip a month, great. I got some extra money in my pocket. Where do I sign, and give me the keys? A banker is going to really get into all the details. Love my bankers because I don't have much of that energy. So I appreciate all they bring to groups and relationships. Bankers with knowledge are energized and catalyzed by things being equal and fair and equitable and accountable. A lot of times you see that in accounting and bookkeeping, quality control, things related to legal policies and practice. People that are in those that have high banker knowledge, energy, core value energy, are excited about the details. When many of us are not, they're very excited and feel very appreciated when others come to them for details. One time I was doing a coaching with someone who was a high banker, and I asked her, how does this sound? She said, that sounds exactly like me. And I said, really? She said, yeah. She says, as a matter of fact, the 16-page report you gave me to review my profile has 7 grammatical errors. Not only did she read the information about her own profile, she was able to see 7 grammatical errors, and she was happy to show me where those were so I could send them to the people that create the report and they could work on getting those fixed. That's the value of a banker, very, very detail oriented. Now, if I go back to the top to the builder, builders are really good at making things happen. When there's a fire, when there's something that needs to go on immediately, you want a builder on your team because the builders are going to jump in and take action. The thing that frustrates a builder is if people don't take action and they're indecisive, because builders are all about making things happen and getting them done. Now, the conflict strategy that I missed for the builder is that because they have that relentless pursuit of results, it can sometimes come across as intimidating. People can be intimidated because there is no excuse, nothing stops the builder from getting things done. And everybody needs a builder on the team. The cool thing is I've done this training with teams that are intact teams, and we've gone through and identified where everybody lies in terms of their core value and the strength that they have in each. And it's really interesting to see how a team comes together and needs all 4 of these core energies to be a high performing, peak performance team. And when a team maybe is not as strong in a particular area, then they can create a plan for how to overcome that so that they can be most successful in whatever business they do. So that's a little bit about The core values index, here is what the banker looks like in terms of how they show up. Detail, fact, black and white, conservation, cautious, very justice, all about facts and data. And so the other thing, there's 4 core values in the assessment. There's also what are called contribution types. There are 6 contribution types. The 6 contribution types are a combination of any 2 core values. For example, here, when you have love and wisdom, when you have that merchant and innovator, you have a lot of creative energy contribution that comes from that person. On the flip side, if you have the power, the builder, and the banker, knowledge, is more practical. And these are typically opposites. You're usually typically more creative bent or more practical, as we find. Like for me, for example, I'm more creative. Don't like to color in the lines, don't like to be restrained by a lot of rules, like to figure out creative ways to help people grow, which is why I love doing what I do. The other contribution, 2 other contribution types are intuitive and cognitive. Intuitive is that gut feeling, that intuition, that inner voice that just says, this is the right thing to do. I know that I know that I know. I can't explain it. If you want facts and figures and details, can't tell you, but I know, and they're right if they have a lot of intuition. The other side of intuition is cognitive. People that tend to think a lot more about a situation. So they aren't going with their gut, they're going to go with thinking. Sometimes the wheels are constantly spinning and they're going to figure out what is the best way. And again, you're either typically one or the other in terms of strength. And when you have both together in a team, it really balances to make a strong team. The last 2 contribution types are independent contributor or community contributor. The independent contributor is a person that can get things done by themselves. So if you have that power energy, that wisdom energy, those people can typically figure out on their own, like to work on their own to figure things out and then bring them to the world. Those with banker energy or knowledge and love of the merchant like to come together with people and think of the greater good and work things with others. So there are more community contributors. And so those are a little bit about the contribution types. And the thing that's most important is we all have a particular core value that's our number 1 through 4. And for each situation, there's one core value that is better than others for that situation in order to have a greater result. So the key is that as we learn what our core values are, we can also relate to others and understand what their core values are so we can shift and appreciate others in their core values or their contribution types for a better outcome as a team, in a family, in a relationship, and it even helps us in business because we can understand who our clients are. If we can understand that a particular client is more have banker energy, then that means that we can focus on speaking to them in more facts and figures and details. If we have a client that is more of a merchant energy, that love energy, then we're going to spend time telling more stories and relating and connecting. If it's someone who has more power energy, we're going to spend time talking about how fast we can get it done, because that's what excites the builder. And if we're talking to an innovator, person with innovator energy, we're going to spend time discussing all the options to get to the best solution. So the great thing is when you really understand your core value of how you're wired, what your superpower is, and your zone of genius, it allows you to make better decisions for yourself, better decisions about people that you relate to, whether it's in your family or in your relationship. Also, people that you work with, you have a better understanding of who they are and how to relate to them. So that's it. This idea of discovering your zone of genius or your superpower is really about knowing who you are at the core, what your wiring is. And I will tell you, someone asked me on a webinar recently, is it too late to discover my purpose and why? And it's never too late. We are always growing. I did not discover my purpose and why till I was 52. Colonel Sanders didn't start Kentucky Fried Chicken till he was 55. It is never too late to discover your why and purpose. It starts with the first step of becoming aware. Becoming aware there's something greater out there that I was created for, a purpose and a why. And when I understand that and I start to operate in my life in purpose, on purpose, I'm going to see better fruit. I'm going to have more joy, more satisfaction, which is really makes life so much better for us and all those around us. The other thing to recognize is that our purpose has 3 parts that indicate it. Our passion, what energizes us, our gifting, what we're good at, and our experience. past things that we've experienced that have been both in our passion and our gifting. And then it's opportunity. When opportunity shows up in our life and we step through those opportunities, that's when we know it's our purpose, when it's peaceful and it's joyful and it's happy and we feel satisfied and fulfilled. So that's the important part about purpose. This idea of core values energy is all about understanding what energizes me versus what drains me. There are many times we might learn for our job or relationship how to do a particular task, which is a behavior, and we actually get good at it. The question is, does that task energize me, like at Disneyland, the happiest place on earth energy, or does it drain me, like Cinderella who had to stay home and mop the floors, drain me? So as you take away from this workshop, think about as you go through life, does this thing energize me or does it drain me? It could be a very, very good indication of whether you have a strong core value or another in that particular area. And the best part is that you get to understand how to relate to everyone better in your life. Number one is to relate to the man or woman in the mirror. You have to be able to relate to yourself well first before you can relate to others. Know who you are so that you can show up as your true 100% authentic self as you were created in purpose, on purpose, never working another day in your life. That energy is contagious. You will attract the people and the resources you need to do everything. You will be in a state of flow, I call it. This is where I talk about the idea of more flow and less hustle. The world has tricked us in this idea that we have to hustle and grind to get things. We don't. When we understand our purpose, we can flow. And it is so much easier to be in flow than the hustle and grind and blood, sweat, and tears, like we used to say in the Army. When we find that state, it's because we understand who we are at the core, and it allows us to relate to everyone better. So when you live on purpose, you never work another day in your life. And I love the fact that I get to help people wake up, reintroduce them to themselves, and walk in purpose, on purpose. So again, back to why we're here. Hopefully you understand a new strategy for success, which is really all about understanding yourself. Understanding yourself can help you solve a lot of those 3 a.m. problems, because many times it's about how we think about situations that keeps us up. This is all part of your own personal growth and development. We should all have a personal development plan that we keep on an annual basis where we're working and growing on the next things. Increasing our thought leadership, this idea that if I know my zone of genius and I know my superpower, I can show up in a better way for my organization, for myself, and for my family. And I'm learning how to do more of what I love and less of what drains me. That should be the one thing we all take away from the pandemic. After everything was taken away, we were left with ourselves, and we had to figure out, what am I really all about? What energizes me? Who am I? And what drains me? And the other thing is, sometimes that leads us to pivot on purpose. Sometimes we make a shift within our career paths. Sometimes we might make a shift within our current role. We may be in a season where we're in transition. It is so important in transition to understand your purpose and why, so that the what and how can pivot from there. I hope you all have enjoyed this session on discovering your zone of genius and learning how to stay there. If you want more information, if you were interested in taking the assessment, getting the full report, or doing any type of coaching with me, I do no-cost strategy sessions where we can talk through your professional development, any personal productivity, or if you're in that season of your life where you're going to be making a career transition, pivot on purpose. I love to do that. You can find me here on the email, james@onpurposelife.com. You can also find me at James Madison on LinkedIn. It has been such a pleasure, and I enjoy, Terry. This has been great. I have enjoyed. I always, you can see, get so passionate when it comes to helping people discover who they are, and I thank you for this opportunity.
Well, oh my gosh, I've got a whole page of notes here.
Shoot.
I've got a whole page of notes. You know what? And you talk about that passion, and that is so true. When people are passionate about something, you want to learn more about them, and it just lights it on fire. Couple things. Understanding purpose is so critical, because also, even during the tough times, staying and knowing what that purpose is helps you navigate those speed bumps.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's that whole why purpose. When it's strong enough, it allows you to have the true north. dedication and commitment to stay the course. And sometimes our what's may change, just like having a GPS, you might take a different route, but if you know the purpose of why you're trying to go somewhere, you stay the course and you don't abandon it at first sign of the wind and the waves.
Yep. I love that. The state of flow, more flow, less hustle.
that
I
is
told
that is
you I
something
took a lot of notes.
that
I
is
do
something
want
I
to go
really
back.
coined. Uh-huh.
I know, I love that. So you talked about purpose and about putting boundaries. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it's just this is I find more and more people that I talk to are stressed and anxious because of the world. Today's world is faster. We have more access to things that we don't need to know all the time, every minute. And so it's become more important that we put boundaries in place, because when we put boundaries in place, it teaches the world how to treat us. And when we don't understand our purpose and our value, we tend to give it all away and let everybody drive us crazy. And then we blame the world when we are responsible for putting in boundaries. One of the things I learned with my coach last week was say no to good things so you can say yes to greater impact things. That's a boundary thing, right? What are the things of greater impact? Because we get caught in just doing so many things and so fast.
Yep. You also had another really good statement, the zone of genius, wake up to be able to find that purpose. And then you also talked about honor yourself and honor others, which was wow.
Absolutely. That's the idea is that first of all, we have to know ourselves so that we can feel comfortable in our skin to show up as we were created and then honor others for who they are. So now I feel honored. I'm reciprocating that honor. Now we can, instead of what we do today, you see a lot of conflict because we're different. But if we understand there are complementary things that were designed to help us all achieve our best and highest, it comes down to honoring people for who they are.
I love that. So one of the other things you talked about the personal development plan, because I actually have one too. And
Good.
it helps kind of make yourself accountable too. But talk about for the average person who may not have that, where do they even start with a personal development plan?
Yeah, it really starts. What I typically do is start with someone, and I did a coaching today, and I asked someone, I said, in a year from today, on June 14th, 2022, what things do you want to be celebrating in your life, accomplishments, both personally and professionally? So it starts with this idea of vision. Where do I want to go in the future? Just a year out. And people start to think about in my work, I want to do this, and personally, I want to do that. And then you look back at where you are. And then the second thing is, what are the obstacles and barriers to getting there? And here comes a list of excuses or reasons that we think. And so first, you get that level of awareness. And then from there, start to pursue understanding what will it take to get there. And the development plan really is an assessment of where you are versus where you want to go. And what are the action steps that need to happen in order to get there.
One of the things that I always do with my team, we have, your annual, reviews and just kind of the overall performance, how we doing, where we going, that kind of thing. I always make them put a personal goal on there. And every quarter I check. Well, because sometimes we also, and depending on where somebody is in their journey, um, and I wish somebody would have held me accountable more when in my younger years, because it's not, especially personally, because if they can help, if they feel valued and you can develop them personally, they're going to be much more productive worker for you in the long term.
Absolutely. This idea we talk more about now is you bring your whole self to work. We no longer have to compartment. That's what the pandemic showed us, because your whole self was sitting at home in your pajamas and a shirt on Zoom calls, right? And the dog was in the background. So this idea that we are whole people, we're not two different people. And when we can bring those two together, you're right. You have this engaged, motivated, empowered person at work that is ready to conquer the world.
Exactly. Well, and I just love that. And it's, you know, you talked about that work-life balance, but it's really that work-life harmony. And I
It's the
love that,
harmony.
it's that harmony. I know. You can tell
Absolutely.
I was taking
You
notes.
did some good notes, yeah. You got an
So,
advanced copy, it sounds like.
well, this has been very, very informative, and I so thank you. One more time, if people want to find out more, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, my email is james@onpurpose-life.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn at James Madison.
Well, I loved it. I loved your story. I loved your journey, because that always interests me on how people got to where they wanted to be. And also our journey. That's the other thing. You know, my grandmother
Yeah,
always used to say, step back, smell the roses, enjoy the journey.
that's right.
And in my younger years, I didn't realize that.
That's
And
right.
so I just wanted to get ahead, get ahead, get ahead. So
That's right. The
I
thing I
love
recently
that.
learned, Terry, is that the journey is the goal. And when you
It
can see the
is.
journey as the goal, you know, wisdom has taught us that, right? But when
Yep.
you can understand the journey as a goal, it's much more enjoyable.
Well, and it, yeah, I just love it. I loved everything that you said. Congratulations.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much. James Madison, On Purpose Life. Make sure that you connect with him. And we will see you next week for another Strategy for Success seminar.